Hi, hello, yes, welcome back to Bubba Boys. Today there's actually only one Bubba, and that's me, Sasha. Jake is feeling under the weather, so I'm just going to be recording this. Also, he's not as passionate about this topic as I am, but we got Charlie here in my lap. I won't be picking him up because I don't want to disturb him. But today, as the title clearly states, and as the all caps indicate to you that I'm very passionate about this, we will be talking about why Will Byers is gay. You know, it's not even something we can debate at this point, I feel like. And if you disagree, I'm about to change your mind, you know? Okay. Let's jump right into this, you know? I'm going to be spanning through all 4 seasons, and there might be some spoilers for season 4. I'm going to put that out there. But also, if you haven't watched Stranger Things, I don't know why you'd be watching this video where I'm going to do an in-depth review of everything. But you know what? That's okay. That's your choice. Okay, so starting off. That scared the crap out of me. Okay, so starting off, we have that in the original pitch for the show, Will is described as a sweet, sensitive, shy boy with sexual identity issues. I feel like that's really all the proof I need. But don't worry, guys. I have pages upon pages of more proof for all of our naysayers out there. And I'd also like to say, especially with season 4 coming out, the Duffer Brothers have come forward and said that they have basically had the entire show planned from the beginning. And this is evident with how they're foreshadowing, spoiler alert, Vecna, and how if you go back to season 1, you can hear the clock chiming. And in season 3, whenever Billy crashes his car, then sees the Mind Flayer people and gets possessed or whatever, you can hear the grandfather clock chiming, the dong dong. So there's been a lot of things that have been setting up for the entire show. And I personally believe, and a lot of other people believe, especially with season 4, that Will's sexuality is one of these things. I think that, like Vecna and our understanding of the Upside Down, it's a slow burn thing, right? Because Will has sexual identity issues. He doesn't know. He's confused. So in the beginning, it's very minute things, people mentioning it. And then season 2, we kind of see something beginning to develop. Season 3, it becomes more obvious to other people. In season 4, Will finally, I feel like, comes to terms with the fact that he is gay. I'm going to get all into that. I was just kind of giving you a rundown as well. Okay. Now, let's talk more about season 1. So nobody gets bullied more by being called gay or queer than Will in season 1, which makes sense considering the fact that the Duffer Brothers, intended his character to be gay, and that kind of makes sense why they're hinting at those clues, people are picking up on something, and I personally feel like there are so many other things that Will could have been bullied for. He could have been bullied for the same things that his other friends were for, being a nerd, liking Dungeons and Dragons, being in the AV club, all of these things, but he is basically only picked on for being gay. And even his father picked up on this kind of thing and would bully him a lot for that and would call him the F slur, And in that scene with Joyce and Hopper, whenever she says how Lonnie used to call him the F slur, Hopper asks, well, is he gay? And Joyce says he's missing. That's what he is. She's kind of doing a dance around, not clearly answering, which I feel like you could say that's just her being a good mother and saying what's important. And I believe it's also that, but I think it's also the fact that she doesn't fully believe that he's straight, And if your kid is very obviously straight, you would say, what? No, of course not. That idea would be preposterous to you. You know what I mean? And that would just kind of be your instant reactions. What? No. But that's not what she did. And I will say that other people were bullied once, being called queer. Jonathan was, whenever Steve was beating him up. But I think that's different because that was a one-off thing. And Steve was just saying something more extreme and more extreme in order to get a rise out of him and get him to punch back because he was trying to start something, which I think is different because when all these bullies are calling Will gay, Will's not even there. They're not doing it to get a rise out of him. they're doing it to get a rise out of his friends, and it's just like something that he's called all throughout the season. Like, it's a pattern. Okay, let's see what else there is. Okay, all right. Now we're gonna talk about season 2. I think this is episode 2 or 1. It's whenever we find out what Elle's been up to, because we thought she was dead, but then we see her in the Upside Down, like in that middle school hallway, running around going, Mike, Mike, Mike. And if you compare that to the episode later on to the scene later on in that episode, where Will is getting his PTS moment, his true sight thing, and he's in the Upside Down, he also is only calling out for Mike. He's going, Mike, Mike. And those scenes are basically identical. And I don't really see how you can say one scene is because of romantic intentions and the other scene is just in a bro way. You know, if it was in a bro way, I think Will would have called for his other friends, because later on in season 2, we can see that he's closer with Mike. But he grows closer with Mike kind of because of all the things he goes through in season 2. But before that, he's kind of equally close with everyone, I believe. And Mike didn't even, in season 1, we can see that Mike didn't even consider Will as like his best friend. It was Lucas who was supposed to be his best friend, as Dustin says to him, you know? So I think it was more of a one-sided bond, and then it just grew more throughout season 2. But call me crazy. Something else I would like to point out in season 2 is that Will is the only one who has never expressed any interest in girls. And this becomes a lot more obvious in season 2, whenever Mike is still hung up on Elle, and then we see that Dustin and Lucas are basically competing for Max. But Will has no interest in any of these girls, and this theme is continued on throughout the seasons, which I can talk about a little bit more when we get to those seasons, but that's definitely a theme we see. He doesn't have any interest in girls. He doesn't get it, you know? And like, I know some people point as like proof of him being straight this is back to season 1, but at his funeral, we see his friends saying like, oh, wait until Will finds out that, I don't remember the girl's name, I think it was Jenny or something, like she was a popular pretty girl, like that she was crying at his funeral, and they're like, wait until Will finds out. And I don't think that's because Will has feelings for this girl. I think it's just because this girl is like one of the most popular girls in school, or she's just a really pretty girl and she's crying. And it's kind of a thing, his friends are like, I would be super psyched if this girl showed attention or care for me. So I'm assuming Will would as well. You know, it's kind of the same thing, like you want to text your friends and it's like, oh my god, the most popular guy in school, I heard him talking about you. Or this guy in my class, this cute guy in my class, I heard him talking about you. You know, you text your friends about that because it's like, I mean, of course they want to know about that. It's a cool thing. But I don't think Will would find it as cool as they would, because I don't think Will likes this girl. Just putting that out there. And what I would also want to talk about from season 2 is that in the episode, this is not that clear. Maybe the Duffer Brothers chickened out about this. I don't know. But in the script, in the stage directions for season 2, episode 9, The Snowball, it's describing who everyone's dancing with and how they're feeling. And to paraphrase, it says that Will is dancing with cute girl, but he isn't looking at cute girl. He's watching ... Mike, who's dancing with 11. And that, I feel like that says a lot. And you can also see when the cute girl comes up to ask Will to dance, he doesn't want to dance. And you could just say that's him being awkward, but no, it's not. There's a difference between being awkward. I'm a very awkward person, and that's kind of like, you still would want attention from, if I was like I would still want attention from a girl or a guy, you know, like that would make me excited, but I'd be very nervous about it. I'd be like stumbling over saying yes. But Will shows a lot of disinterest, and he looks at Mike, and he looks back at the girl, and looks at Mike, and then Mike's like, get it, boy, like, go get her. And Will's like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, sure. And he's leaving a lot of room for Jesus when he's dancing with that girl. Like, he cannot show any smaller amount of interest in her, which I think is kind of funny. Now, moving on to season 3. AKA the season where they start ignoring Will and begin minimizing his role because they don't know what to do with him when he's not in danger and needs saving. Stop sleeping on Noah Schnapp's talent. This is a side note, but he is so sidelined after season 2. Like, season 2, he's literally the main character, I would say, and his acting skills are insane. Like, in my opinion, he's one of the most talented kids of, like, the younger cast that are on that show. Him and Millie Bobby Brown, I feel like, are extremely talented. And Sadie Sink, of course. But they just, like, season 3, his only role is like, oh, I get goosebumps. In season 4, California Night Gang is, like, barely in it. And they were one of my favorite. I really liked them. I liked the chemistry, I liked the characters. And they were barely in it. And I was like, what's going on? But we'll talk about season 4 later, because I have a lot to say, but also not much to say on that. Anyways, I'm not going to talk about, like, the iconic season 3 scene just yet. I'm going to do a more, like, in-depth analysis for season 3 before I talk about the thing that, like, made everybody think that he's gay. I think we all know that I'm talking about that scene with Mike. Okay, so Will does not want to talk about girls. He doesn't understand why Mike and Lucas are so obsessed with them. All he wants to do is play Dungeons and Dragons in Mike's basement. Which I think this is for quite a few reasons. Let me readjust. I think this is for quite a few reasons. I think, this is because he, number one, just doesn't like girls. He doesn't understand what their obsession is with them. He doesn't understand the appeal. That sounds so bad, but he's not into it, And I think him just wanting to postpone growing up is because he doesn't want to have to come to terms with his sexuality. He doesn't want to have to think about that at all. I think he's beginning to think about it a lot more. It's becoming more obvious to him, the disconnect between him and his friends, considering the fact that all of his friends like girls or in relationships, and he just doesn't get it. And in season 3, there's that line where, Jonathan and Nancy are hurrying off to work. Jonathan has that kiss on his cheeks, and Will saying that's gross. And then Joyce says, like, oh, you'll get it one day when you fall in love. And Will just says, I'm never gonna fall in love. And I think that line hits close to heart, but I think this is because it's not that he doesn't want love, it's that he has never seen a same-sex relationship in his life. He's never seen that. So he's never felt anything for a girl. He probably never will. He never will feel anything for a girl. And it's because of that, he just thinks, I'm destined to be alone. I'm not going to fall in love. And I think it's also because he kind of has feelings for Mike, and Mike is with Elle. And if he can't have Mike, he can't have anybody, And I think another reason why Will is so determined in this season, like his main motivation is being like, let's stay young forever. It's because this is his last summer as a kid. He's going into high school. He's going to have to say goodbye to all of his childhood. And he missed out on a lot of his childhood. Like kind of 2 years, it was like he was missing out because he got lost in the Upside Down. Elle came into the picture then, and that really changed the friendship dynamic. He never got to meet Elle at first. It changed the dynamic of the friend group, and nothing was the same after that, And he was dealing with a lot of PTSD. He got fucking possessed, He was dealing with a lot, and he lost like 2 years of his childhood. And they're kind of like the last 2 years of his childhood, which is really sad. He wants to go back to the way things are, but he's realizing things can't go back to the way they are. He can't go back to not really understanding his sexuality, because once you start that journey, you can't like just be like, never mind, I'm gonna go back to pre-puberty, So, as I was saying, like, he just wants it to be the boys, just like me and the boys playing Dungeons and Dragons in my basement. That's his ideal world. And I think it becomes more obvious, the fact that he doesn't have any crushes at this point, because everybody's coupling up. Like, season 3, like, I started to watch it with my dad last night. He said this season is so overly sexual. And it really is. Like, everyone's making out with each other. Everybody's dating. This been going between Hop and Joyce. It's just this whole season is about summer love. And Will is the only character the only character who is not focused on a relationship, or there's nothing about love regarding him at all. And this goes back to his line of saying, I don't think I'm ever going to fall in love. And it's because he doesn't like girls, And it's becoming very clear to him. And I think it starts becoming clear to his other friends as we get to the scene with Mike, where Mike very rudely, in a very aggressive tone, just says, I hate this scene so much. I love it, but I hate it because it's so sad to me. Where Mike just goes, it's not my fault you don't like girls. I was watching a YouTuber, and he said, that silence screams volumes, that silence is deafening how loud it is. You know what I mean? Because Will doesn't respond. It's just like this shock and hurt comes across his face because he's like, oh my god, I don't like girls. I think it's one thing to think this, but whenever someone else vocalizes it, I've had this a lot with other things in my life where I don't even know with what, but I know I have trouble sharing emotional stuff, and my friend just said, Sasha, you just you hate seeing people cry because you don't like crying or showing emotions. And I was like, oh damn, you're right. And it's something it doesn't click in your head, but you hear someone else say something that you've been feeling for a while and just don't know how to vocalize, and then it clicks in your head and you're like, oh shit, this isn't just made up in my head, this is a real thing. And I really think that's what happened in that scene where Will was just kind of just I don't like girls. I don't think I'll ever like girls. And all these things he's been feeling and all these hints we've had in season 1 and 2 and throughout the season are just clear cut, oh, this is what's going on. And I think Will's, as we see in season 4, whenever Mike's not in the equation, Will and Elle, they love each other. But in season 3, Will, the thing he says about Elle, he calls Elle some stupid girl, saying that all Mike wants to do is kiss some stupid girl. And it's not because he hates Elle, it's because he hates the fact that Mike loves Elle. And Mike enjoys spending time with Elle more than his friends. And I think I just want to put that out there. That's not really related, but I feel like it's kind of clear that Will doesn't dislike Elle as a person. He just kind of dislikes when... let me try to word this properly. In this season, he kind of dislikes Elle just because of what Elle represents, of just being... He just sees her as Mike's girlfriend, the thing that's tearing their friend group apart. But, and as we see in season 4, when Mike's not really in the equation, his relationship with Elle is much better. Whenever he sees Mike and Elle together, he lashes out at Elle because, he's not going to lash out at his boo. But to get back to the scene where Mike is saying, it's not my fault you don't like girls, I think this is what really struck Will to the core and is what led him to then destroying Castle Byers. It's because he's saying goodbye to his childhood. He's saying goodbye to the person he was. I feel like that scene, I will say, makes me so emotional because I was the same age as these characters were supposed to be. And so the show came out the summer I was going into high school. And I was also having to say goodbye to my childhood, basically, and grow up. And that scene, I'm pretty sure it made me cry the first time I watched it because I was dealing with same things. I wasn't actually physically destroying something, where it's emotionally I was tearing down the person I used to be. But yeah, I think he's doing this just because it's too hard to try to be... He's realizing things will never be the way they were before. And it's too hard trying to cling to that person he was before he started realizing his sexuality. And I just think that's when you add those deeper meanings to that scene and in him struggling with the sexual identity, the scene becomes much stronger. Okay, next up, we're going to talk about the scenes in season 4 that make me think Will is gay. So basically, every scene that he's in, I feel I don't even know how else to vocalize it. Because if you watch the show, season 4 is really just the Duffer Brothers being he's gay. He fruity, And I appreciate that. Each season, the hints and clues to Will being gay become louder and louder and more obvious, because I feel like with Vecna, we're building it up, And I think season 5 is when it's going to be confirmed. I really feel like that's what they're doing. I don't think the Duffer Brothers are queer baiting. I want to put that out there. I think that they're purposely building up This is character development for Will. Like, coming to terms with your sexuality is character development. And I really like the fact that it is kind of built up in the same way that the person experiencing it would. Like, at first, you don't really notice it. And then maybe you get your first crush and you're like, what's going on? And then in like, that's season 2. And then season 3, it's really this internal struggle of trying to come to terms with it while also trying to cling to what you knew before, because you feel like you're changing as a person. And then, as we see in season 4, it's Will has come to terms with this. It's quite clear that Will knows. So I feel like that speaks true. In season 4, obviously, opening scene where that beautiful girl is rubbing her foot against Will and it's like, and then he goes, oh, bitch, what? Like, he acts like she's a cockroach. It's honestly so funny, but he's just like, okay, no thanks. Clearly not interested. And to me at this point, it's like, okay, it's no longer just like this girl's not his type. Because with Max, you could say, she just wasn't his type. That's why he wasn't interested. But when it comes to every girl not being your type, it's just like, females aren't your type. That's what the scene, I feel like, is displaying. Also, the fact that Alan Turing was the historical figure he chose to write about. I feel like there's a clear reason why. I think it's because Alan was gay. He's one of the only publicly gay people in history who have done amazing accomplishments outside of the LGBTQ plus community. And he did a lot in the STEM community. And I feel like that rings true to Will, because Will loves AV things and is a bit of a nerd, and so is Alan. And I feel like that's why he chose him, because he sees a lot of himself in Alan. You could just say, they don't even publicly say in the show, there's no line saying that's who he was doing his thing about. It was just if you read the poster. I'm like, yeah, but in this show, everything is deliberate. Like, there's so many little Easter eggs in the show, you can't tell me this was just a random coincidence. Like, if you look at all the graffiti in season 4, it's deliberate. Like, when Dustin is calling Steve, if you read the graffiti on that phone booth, it says ET phone home. And you can't just be like, oh, that was... But if you see that, you're going to be like, oh no, the Duffer Brothers obviously did that deliberately, because they publicly said they gained a lot of inspiration from ET. But then you're also going to say that the poster wasn't deliberate, and that's just a coincidence. I see this a lot. I feel like people will accept certain Easter eggs as like being there for a reason, but then other things, they're like, no, I don't accept that. I don't get it. I feel like that was definitely on purpose to hint to his sexuality. And later on, a scene, I feel like, number one, actually, before I talk about that scene between him and Mike on the car, which I feel like is just so clear what he's actually saying there, the subtext is written in capital letters, I'm going to talk about the painting. Now, Elle's voiceover is saying that she thinks Will likes a girl, and he's making a painting for her, but he won't show her. We obviously know it's not for a girl, it was for Mike. At the airport, he was going to give it to Mike, but then he chickened out because it was so awkward between them. And when they're getting shot at and their lives are at risk, he goes back. He goes back in that room, runs back, and grabs that painting, because that's how important the painting is to him. I don't think the painting is of like a rainbow flag, and it's like, I'm gay. I just think it's something that he made with Mike in mind. Because that's what you do when you love someone. You make something with them in mind. It doesn't have to be something extremely personal. It might be a picture of all of them as friends or something. I know it's some sort of landscape thing, because I think he was painting like a sky, I think is what I saw in the clip when they showed. So I just know it's for Mike, and it's something very special and important from Will, to give that to Mike, because he wants to make Mike happy, because he obviously loves him, So I just want to put that out there. I did watch a YouTube video where they were saying that they think the painting might be linked to the rest of the story, something to do with the Upside Down, something to do with Vecna, because in the past, all of Will's drawings have been incredibly important, especially season 2. Like, his drawings were key, plot points. So I feel like that could be interesting if that painting is somehow connected to the rest of the plot, or Vecna, because obviously Vecna has some sort of connection to Will. Because there is a theory floating around that in season 1, it's not a Demogorgon who kidnaps Will and brings him to the Upside Down, but instead it's Vecna. Which makes sense if you go back and watch that, because you hear a clock sound, and telekinesis is used to unlock the door. And if it was just, and if it was just a Demogorgons, they just eat people. They're just hunters. They don't grab someone and then take them to the Upside Down. So I feel like that's an interesting theory, and I feel like that could definitely tie in. And I think Will has some sort of connection to Vecna, and I definitely feel like that painting could be connected to the Upside Down, but that doesn't change the fact that he made this for Mike, and has something to do with he loves Mike. And I will also talk now about the roller rink stuff. And Will is very mad at Elle for lying at Mike. More mad than just a friend would be, with like how their friend is dealing with their relationship. So I feel like most of the time you would call your friend out a bit on their shit. You'd be like, hey, this is kind of bad. But you'd still cover for your friend and try to help your friend out, because Elle is more like a sister to him than anything else, right? So like he would try to help Elle out, but instead he's like very mad at her because she's wronging his man. And like when he sits down, it's not that, it's the fact that doing this could hurt Mike is what's making Will so upset. When he sits her down, he's like, Mike doesn't deserve this. He's gonna be mad. Like, you can't do this to Mike. So just again showing how much Will cares for Mike, more in a way that more than just a friend would. Because if it was just a friend way, like we see his relationship with Lucas and Dustin. If it was this case, like let's say Elle is lying to Lucas or something, he would cover for Elle. We all know he would cover for Elle, and he would like help her out. But since it's Mike, it's different, Just putting that out there. And I think that's another scene from the roller rink I want to talk about is when after Elle gets embarrassed and like she gets really bullied like that, and they're filming her, and then Will and Mike are searching for Elle, and kind of Will is saying to Mike like what has happened to us? We used to be best friends. And he's like, and Elle has like a binder full of letters for you, and you've called me maybe 3 times in this year. And then, Mike says to him, well, that's because she's my girlfriend. And then Will says, well, then what about us? What are we? And Mike says, well, we're friends. We're just friends. And then, Will says, like, well, we used to be best friends. But I think it's not just because he's sad that they're no longer best friends. It's that after Mike said, she's my girlfriend, Will said, what about us? It's because he doesn't see Mike in a platonic way. He sees Mike. He loves Mike, He loves Mike. He sees Mike in a different way, which is why it hurts more. Because I feel like if it was a thing of, like, let's say any of his other friends, Max, Lucas, Dustin, he would not be this upset about them losing touch. He would be sad, of course, but he wouldn't compare, like with Lucas, he wouldn't compare his relationship to the relationship that Lucas has with Max, because he knows it's different. And we can see that he knows it's different there. But when it comes to Elle and Mike, he thinks that his relationship with Mike is the same. Like, or at least he wants it to be the same. Which I feel like speaks volumes. Okay, and now we're going to talk about the scene, which was just like really confirmed. All this, I was like, okay, like this is quite clear. But what this scene between Will and Mike, when they're sitting on the hood of the car, and Mike is basically venting to Will about his relationship issues with Elle, it is so clear to me that I think it's clear to anybody, not even someone who thinks that Will is gay, that Will is talking about himself in this scenario, and he's saying it's so hard to tell people, it's scary to tell the people, especially the people you care about, how you feel, because what if it changes? What if it changes something, Because what will they think about you if they see you differently? Or he says something along these lines, and it's so clear that he's not talking about Mike being scared to share his feelings to Elle. He is talking about how he's terrified to tell Mike how he feels, and he's just scared in general to tell anybody who he is, And I feel like it's especially clear to people who have felt this before in some sort of way, when you have something that you're scared to tell others, whether it's something involving your sexuality, or let's say like mental health issues, or something, or some trauma you've had in your past. Most people who have something that could change the way someone views them, they're terrified to tell people, especially the people that are close to them, And I feel like that is very prevalent in this scene, and it's what really confirmed it for even my brother, who before watching season 4 was like, Will's not gay. Also, we don't need to label it. I don't see the point. After watching season 4, and especially this scene, he's like, I see what you're talking about. Like, it's clear now. Like, I get it. Like, Will, not just that Will's gay, but Will is in love with Mike. This scene kind of confirmed that. And that's why I believe the Duffer Brothers aren't queer baiting. They're making it more and more obvious as the seasons go along. And I don't think they're just doing this to appease fans, because they've had this show planned out since season 1, you know? They knew how they wanted to end it. They had the whole story planned. Or at least they say they do. They claim they do. But I truly think they're going to dive more into his sexuality later on. And I definitely think in season 5, I don't think volume 2, he's going to come out per se. He might. I heard something that people were talking about that they really wanted to see, which I also think would be really nice to see. Will and Robin, if they reunite, them bonding over this, I feel like would be a really powerful and beautiful scene. But I don't think we're going to get that in volume 2. I know each episode's going to be like 2.5 hours long, so in total it's going to be 5 hours of content. But it's just so much going on with this plot. I don't know if we're going to be able to get a calm enough scene where something like that could happen. The only other way I can see Will announcing this in any way in volume 2 is if his life is in danger and he like says something. Like if he tells Elle, I'm gay, or if like, let's say something, he's about to die and he tells Mike, I love you, or something like that. I can see that happening, maybe, but I feel like that's going to be something that happens in volume 5. I don't think Will, I do think by the time the show's over, Will is going to come out in some way. I don't know if he's going to publicly come out to all of his friends, or if it's just going to come out to the audience and confirm it in some way. Like if we see him maybe writing down in a diary journal, like I'm gay or something. But I am like 99.99% confident at this point, by the end of season 5, there will be some sort of confirmation on his sexuality. And I have to say, I know some people are like annoyed with like how long it is taking us to get to the point whether or not Will is gay. And I know Noah Schnapp has, I love Noah Schnapp, but I don't trust anything he has to say when it comes to Will's sexuality, because he doesn't know. You know, this is something the Duffer Brothers are deciding on, because they are the writers, they're the directors, they're the creators of the show. And as we know, they don't tell the cast many things about the show. Like, most of the cast did not know that season 5 was going to be the last season until the Duffer Brothers posted that public letter on Instagram. And that's when Noah Schnapp discovered it, because he said that in like an interview with Jimmy Fallon. So he doesn't know what's going to happen with his character. And as we've seen in the past, like with that, after the internet was exploding with season 3, when Will said when Mike said to Will, like, it's not my fault you don't like girls. Noah Schnapp was saying, oh, I don't think this is in a gay way at all. I think this is just a thing that, it's taking Will longer to come to terms with it's taking Will longer to grow up and mature, and he's just trying to cling on to his childhood, and that's what he meant by it. Like, he just doesn't like any girls yet. But now, with so much stuff that is just so clear at this point that Will is not straight. Noah Schnapp saying, it's 2022. I don't think we don't need to label it. There's no need to label it. It's like he even is acknowledging at this point that Will's not straight. But he also I just don't think he wants his character to be gay, because, this is a character he's grown up with, and I'm sure he sees a lot of himself in this character. And when Will becomes gay, I feel like that's also going to everyone already equates Noah Schnapp to Will, like they see them as the same person, basically. So when Will becomes gay, everyone's going to be like, oh, Noah Schnapp's gay, which I don't think is the case. And I'm not going to comment on an actual person's sexuality, because that's not my place to say anything like that. But yeah, I just don't think Noah Schnapp wants the word gay associated with him the rest of his life, which is completely fair, but I don't think he has any true say. He doesn't know what's going to happen with his character's sexuality. And I feel like we should stop asking the actors about like where they think their character's going to go, because they don't know, and especially with something like this, where at this point it's pretty clear what the Duffer Brothers are intending. I think it differs from what Noah Schnapp wants for his character, which is perfectly fine. But I don't think we should be interviewing the actors about the future of their characters, because they're not the writers for the show. That's just my opinion. But what's not opinion for me, which is basically just fact in my mind, is that Will Byers is gay. You can't convince me otherwise. I hope I helped articulate any other people out there who believe this. I hope I helped articulate our common beliefs. I hope maybe show this to people who say that you're wrong. Be like, actually, no, I'm not. Here's all the proof. And it's like, how long is this video going to be? Like 40 minutes? I don't know. But yeah, that's everything I wanted to say. Thank you for watching. This was Bubble Boys, only one of them. I'm Sasha, and Will is gay. Bye.
Jamendo.com